What's up, boys? We are back with another little episode here today. And I found this guy on Spotify talking shit, saying some crazy stuff. Found some lady running for governor, also saying some crazy shit on Piers Morgan's show. Betty Yee. She's from LA, I guess. We'll let you guys decide if you're going to vote for this lady or not, but the boys here can tell you it's not looking good for this lady. It is not looking good. Let's jump in first with this newfound man here. He's got a pretty decent little size show, but he's saying some dumb shit. So we figured we'd call him out. Let's go. Let's start listening to my good friend David here. Let's see what we got.
Everybody is that this issue of trans sports is just not a real issue. But what about a trans boxer who's beating the crap out of a woman? It's statistically non-existent. Okay.
What the fuck does statistically non-existent mean? You can watch the video. You can pull up this dude beating the shit out of some lady in a boxing match, in an Olympic boxing match for like 30 seconds. The fuck does it statistically doesn't exist mean? We can watch it happen, motherfucker.
Okay. You look at the number of trans people in general, under 1%. You look at the percentage of those that play sports at all. And then the ones that are doing it in anything that could approximate a competitive level. And then you go only to the sports where it matters. There are segregated sports that don't really need to be, archery and equestrian. It's like, who cares? Compete wherever you want. I don't give a damn. But then when you slice and slice and slice and slice, and then you realize, wow, some states only have like 0 to 3 trans athletes at all.
So his whole argument here is fucking stupid. So what he's saying is, there's so few trans people that who cares? Why shouldn't they be able to dominate sports? The thing is, it doesn't take a lot of dudes competing in women's sports to really fuck shit up. Because you know how many men you need if you want to dominate a women's sport? Like one? That's pretty much it. He's like, oh, well, there's only like 1 to 3 per state. Yeah. You remember the dude that was dominating women's swimming? There was only one of them, but he was fucking winning everything because he's a dude. That's how that shit works. You don't need 10 guys in women's collegiate swimming to dominate the sport. It just takes one. Same with here in California. We had a track and field champion in high school, a women's champion. Fucking dude, man. There was only one of them. And that's all it takes to dominate the sport. Because especially in these single person sports like track and field, tennis, swimming, that kind of stuff, it's not even like a team effort. It's not like San Jose State's dude that was on the volleyball team. Like, yeah, that sucks. But at least a team sport, he might not be able to completely change the game. That guy happened to be at San Jose State, not a great example because he hurt some women and, that was a whole deal. But you start getting just a few guys in these sports that dominate. And why do you need any more? I mean, like probably 50. He said there was like 1 to 3 in each state. Okay. That's all it takes, dude. Doesn't take a whole lot more than that. I don't know, this thing's so fucking dumb. Like you're gonna act like it's statistically non-existent. Ignore the evidence of your eyes and ears. Ignore Leah Thomas winning all the swimming championships. Ignore the guy beating the shit out of the woman in the boxing match. Ignore there was a dude competing in women's UFC at one point. He was beating the shit out of him, cracked another woman's skull open. As you can imagine, a male UFC fighter, that probably wasn't too difficult. But what are you talking about, man? It's statistically insignificant. We can all see it. It doesn't take a ton of men to dominate women's sports. That's the whole fucking point. whatever. Let's listen to the rest of this dude's little bit here.
Remember, no one even cares about women, quote, women in men's sports. If someone born female wants to play in the men's basketball league, Trump doesn't care. No, they don't care because there's no concern about fairness there. So when you reduce this,
Yeah, so that kind of like gives the whole game away right there. So what he's done is flip it around here. He usually, when we're talking about this issue, it's men competing in women's sports. And so what he's doing is saying, half of this issue isn't even a problem, which first of all, the number of trans men and trans women are not the same. Okay. So let's just fucking start there. It's not 50-50. But even if it was, he's saying half the issue doesn't matter because no one gives a shit if women compete in men's sport. Like a trans woman or trans man, I guess, is a woman pretending to be a dude. Yeah, no fucking shit. Of course that's not an issue because women can't compete in men's sports at any like high level. Okay? There is not a single woman in the NFL. And there is never going to be. That's why it's not a problem. It doesn't matter if you're a chick who thinks she's a dude, you're not going to the NFL. You're not going to the NBA. You're not playing in the MLB. Because it doesn't matter what you think you are. You can take your dress off and throw on a pair of baseball pants and claim to be a dude. You're not making it on any level. That's why it's not a fucking problem. This whole argument's so fucking dumb that you think that that's a good point. That, no one gives a shit about, women playing in men's sports. Yeah, because men are the more athletic sex. And he even says right there, because there's no advantage. Yeah, that kind of gives the whole game away. You're implying there that there is an advantage to being a man playing in women's sports, which obviously there is, but they want to deny. But he just admitted the whole thing right there. Listen to this again.
in the men's basketball league, Trump doesn't care. No, they don't care because there's no concern about fairness there.
Yeah. No kidding, dude. There is no concern about fairness there. There is no concern about a WNBA player going to play in the NBA because it's not going to happen because there's such a different level of athleticism between the sexes. That's why, dude.
So when you reduce
That's the whole point.
This is an issue Trump has ranted and raved about for years, and it sometimes applies to 0, 1, or 2 people per state. There's a lot of states where there are 0.
Yeah, sometimes it only applies to 0 people per state. Okay. All right. Whatever. So don't worry about your daughter not being able to get a scholarship in track and field if you live in California. You can feel good about it because there's no trannies dominating sports in Iowa. Don't worry if your daughter wants to go be an Olympic boxer and you don't want her to get beaten up by dudes. It statistically doesn't happen. Just don't watch the video of it actually happening. Fuck this guy, dude. Fuck all these people that want to sit there and pretend like this is normal. Dudes should be in women's sports, whatever, man. It's such lies. It's just such, I don't even understand. Oh, I do understand actually why this has all happened. So if you want a little background into why these people are doing this, why they're lying, it goes back to 2015 and the decade before that, where there was the fight for gay marriage. And there was this whole lobby built around legalizing gay marriage. Lots of donors, lots of lobbyists, consultants, all making a ton of money. A whole industry around trying to get Congress to pass a law legalizing gay marriage. And then something unexpected happened in 2015. The Obergefell v. Hodges case came in 2015, June. And what they did, the Supreme Court, they legalized gay marriage across all 50 states. So you had this massive industry fundraising around legalizing gay marriage, and then they were the dog that caught the mail truck. It happened. So all these consultants, this whole industry, They said, well, we can throw our hands up, say we did a great job, go home, throw all this money away, all these donors that, care about, gay rights and, progressive cultural values. Or a better idea, if you're one of these consultants, we could move the goalposts. What we could do is come up with another issue that we can keep creating controversy around, and then keep the money flowing. They're not, obviously between these two choices, you could tell which the consultants wanted to pick. They weren't going to throw their hands up and go home and say they won. That's not how DC works. So they created another issue. And if you think about it, all this trans stuff started right there around 2015, 2016, right when the Hodges decision came in. So this trans issue ends up getting pushed on us by lobbyists, by the media, by people that wanted to keep the money flowing. And then what you have is all the sheep, the cultural progressives that, jumped on board. Oh yeah, legalizing gay marriage, that was just the beginning. Yeah, the whole goal the whole time was, dudes beating up women in boxing. And the lobby just never did a great job selling it. Gay marriage was always something that seemed like it was going to be legalized. It was something where the culture in the United States was really leaning towards that happening one way or another. So, and then there was that issue of, some states being able to recognize gay marriage and some states not recognizing it. What would happen if they moved states? So the Supreme Court said, fine, gay marriage, that's going to be legal. And it ended up being a blessing in disguise on some level for the conservatives, because it was not a popular issue in 2015 to stand up and say you weren't for gay marriage, even though you can find lots of videos of Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama in like 2008, 2004 saying gay marriage shouldn't be legalized. But we just ignore that. Obama, was a saint, and he was always for gay marriage. We should never forget that. He was never drone striking people in the Middle East or, nothing like that. Just forget all that kind of stuff. Deporting, millions of people more than Donald Trump ever did. Forget about all that kind of stuff. But this industry had to continue. But the trans issue was just so ridiculous. Even right now, it's like over 80% of people, I think it's even closer to 90%, oppose men playing in women's sports and, don't believe that trans women are actually women, all this crazy shit. No one actually believes the lies, but the money keeps flowing because these donors have their network, the lobbyists have their network, and they gotta keep the racket going. So then they put out all this propaganda, and people like this guy, David, just pick up on it. You have to be a good liberal. You got to toe the line. If liberals are good at anything, it's toeing the line, sticking to the message, and, being a good party soldier. So dutifully, they do it. They don't know why. These people don't have real deeply held. They don't really watch the video of, the dude beating up the chick in the UFC and thinking, yeah, that's really what America's about. Of course not. They're hacks. And so they don't want to tell the truth. They can't tell the truth because then they might be called out by someone to their left, and then that, would destroy their life. They'd be called a bigot or something because they believe in women's sports in their current form. Whatever, these people are just spineless. I mean, just think of that. How feminine of a dude do you have to be standing there telling us, trans women are actually women or something like really? Or you don't really believe that. You're just not man enough to tell the truth. That's really what this is. You're afraid of being canceled by your communist friends. And so, speaking of toeing the party line, there is a race for governor here in California. Gavin Newsom's going to be out. That's why he's running for president in 2028. He's got to keep his political career alive. And there are a lot of crazy people running for governor here in California because it's California and you can win a statewide office being a crazy socialist. So this lady, Betty Yee, from LA went on Piers Morgan's show. And Piers Morgan's pretty famously tough on the whole trans issue, going after the leftists, as he should be. And Betty Yee doesn't put up a great performance. She's obviously kind of a dull person. He doesn't take a genius to win office here in California as a Democrat. I think Nancy Pelosi famously said a glass of water could win here as long as it ran as a Democrat. So let's take a little listen to the songbird of our generation, maybe the smartest boomer we've got here in California. Betty Yee. Take it away.
That you would allow trans athletes to compete in women's sport in the Olympics if you were governor?
Well, I think there's still a lot of discussion that needs to happen. I think there's a lot of information we need to learn about what's really happening with the ability of trans athletes to compete. But my statement is about being able to be sure that they can compete. And right now,
but my question is whether you think they should compete in women's sport in the Olympics.
All right, and that's like the main point. These people, these leftists want to say, well, you know, we need to make space for the trans women to compete. Trans women being dudes, of course. And what Piers is pointing out here is that I'm not saying that these people can't compete. They can compete. They just have to compete with the men, like the rest of the people with XY chromosomes. That's all we're saying here.
Because it's coming to LA, so it's relevant.
I think transgender female athletes are women athletes, and they should be able to compete.
Really? So if you were governor of California, you would support biological males who identify as women competing in women's sport in the Olympics?
They are now identified as transgender female.
And you think that makes, and you think it's fair that they should then compete in women's sport?
I think they should be able to compete in women's sports, but I also think that there is still
near to LA.
So she doesn't believe in women's sports. That's really all there is to that. As soon as you believe that men can compete in women's sports, you just don't believe in women's sports. Which, okay, fine. But just come out and say that. If your whole thing is, you know, you don't want to watch women try to play basketball, okay, then just come out and say that. Why do you have to do this whole pretend thing saying, you know, the NBA players, they should actually be able to go play in the WNBA, which is ridiculous. And now I think after the profit sharing, the NBA's always subsidize the WNBA, which loses money hand over fist. So now what's going on, the NBA is going to funnel even more money to the WNBA, and they're going to start paying their players like $1.2 million, which is crazy because more people show up to high school football games than show up to these WNBA games. All these people that want to stand back, no, it's great. The WNBA players are making so much money now. Okay. You ever been to a WNBA game? Who's your favorite player? And you can't say Caitlin Clark. Who's your famous person from your town that's, you know, wants to go play in the WNBA? Or if you live in a city with a WNBA team, just, you know, name a couple players. It's stupid. It's so dumb that you want to go out and pretend like, you know, you're a feminist or something, but you're for the dudes going out there and just destroying women's sports. Okay. Let's listen to Betty Yee destroy her career a little bit more. And the crazy thing is this lady, you know, probably she's not a front runner, but someone just like her is going to win and is going to be governor of California. Someone probably stupider than her, someone like Eric Swalwell, who is, of course, taking his marching orders from the Chinese government and the spies they place in his bedroom. Fang, anybody? All right, let's listen to a little more Betty Yee. All we can stand of Betty Yee.
Where men would not have an advantage over women, with the exception potentially of archery.
You know, I think you can see female athletes where, particularly in track and field, where agility is probably...
Hang on,
So the question was, what sports could women compete against men fairly? And this fucker, she throws out track and field. Like, have you ever seen men throw a shot put versus women? She's like, yeah, you know, those two things, those are equal. You ever seen a track star in the Olympics? The men's relay team versus the women's relay team, you know, those are essentially the same thing. You just flip a coin for which one should be representing the U.S. on the men's team. It doesn't matter. They're both essentially the best. They both try their hardest.
Suggesting that women. So hang on. You think that women could compete against men in track and field, like in 100 meters, 200 meters, 10,000 meters? Do you?
Perhaps. You know, I'm not a sports expert. But
Oh, of course they couldn't. Have you seen the times that women and men record in the Olympics for all track and field events? Have you watched Usain Bolt?
And just so we're clear, Piers doesn't make this point, but I wish he would have, that there are a lot of boys in high school who run faster 100-meter times in their state championships than the women's Olympic team runs. So this whole conversation is stupid, of course.
When he smashed the world record for the 100 meters?
yes.
So you
And
think
women are
women
also
could run
smashing
against Usain Bolt, for example, at his peak, and that would...
And she goes on to say, yeah, you know, I do think Usain Bolt could be out there competing against women, and that would be fair. Which, of course, is ridiculous. Like, could you imagine? Could you just think about how funny it would be to watch Usain Bolt running against the women's track team? Usain Bolt makes other Olympic track men, like the best men from their countries around the world, he makes them look like they're running in slow motion. Imagine what he would do to a women's field. It's just insane that these people are willing to go on camera and listen for sure. Yeah. Yes, Betty Yee, which sport should women be competing against men? And she doesn't even put there's some out there, like Piers acknowledges, you know, that you could say like, oh, maybe shooting or like ribbon twirling or synchronized swimming, maybe some diving. She could have pulled out any of those Summer Olympic games where, you know, you could make some argument that, you know, one, the sport shouldn't be in the Olympics at all because, you know, women may, you know, have not an advantage over men, but it may be close. I don't know. I'm not big into the ribbon twirling crowd, but I don't know why being a dude would make it easier. She could have thrown something like that out, but she hits him with no, track and field. Like the sport where it matters the most if you're male or female. The greatest athletes in the world do these sports, okay? She decides to hit us with that. That's how stupid these people are, man. Even Piers kind of acknowledges, like, yeah, you know, you could have said archery or something, you know, just let's leave archery to the side. But no, she could have just doubled down there and said, no, I really, archery was the one I was thinking of. That's where I'm thinking we could combine the men's and women's brackets. That's still wrong, but just so we're clear, with archery, you know, men can pull way more weight, shoots a flatter arrow. There is definitely an advantage to being a man in archery, but at least there's like a little bit of an argument there. You could try and like the you know, high level, try and skate by selling that argument. But she goes with javelin, discus, 100-meter dash. And this person could be running the largest economy in the country. I think California is like the 5th largest economy in the world, bigger than most countries. That's why California is so fucked up. If you see, you don't live in California, you see all the California memes, and you're thinking, you know, all this propaganda about Newsom, he can't be that bad. No, it's that this state is that bad. We actually had a dude that won a field event in the women's bracket in CIF, the high school state championships. And everyone was just like, okay, yeah, whatever, that's normal. It's California. So, and that guy probably ended up getting a scholarship somewhere, which is the saddest part. But what are you going to do? Don't vote for Newsom. I can tell you that. Don't vote for Betty Yee if you live in California either. I know there's not a lot of great options. Hopefully we get the magic scenario where we get 2 Republicans at the top of the ticket. Probably not. It's unlikely. But right now, the top 2 vote getters are Republicans. So, we'll see. We can only hope. It would be so funny. But until that happens, which is unlikely, we're getting trannies in our sports. Okay. I don't know. Throw in the chat what you guys think. We're out of here. Later, guys.